Independent artist, did you know that your mix could be repelling away potential new fans? Well, I'm Daxton Page, and today I'm going to be showing you 4 steps to create mixes that sound way more professional, so that when you put your content and your music out in front of the world, you can put as best of a foot forward as you possibly can. Because I understand a lot of people are starting out, they don't have a big budget to go into a studio and get the highest quality recordings out there. And it's a competitive world out there, y'all. There's a lot of people are spending money to get the best sounding mixes they possibly can, and that's really tough for people that are starting out and don't have a huge budget. So a lot of what people do is they invest in home recording equipment and they try to start from there, but they feel like their mixes just sound low quality. They sound like demo mixes as opposed to professional mixes. So I want to give you some tools today that are going to help you out. Some are going to be free, some are going to be softwares that you have to invest in, but either way, this is going to help improve the overall quality of your mix so that when you present it in front of your fans, it's higher quality, you have a bigger potential to create a new fan because the mix is as high of quality as you can possibly make it. So the first software that I would look at getting is FreeG. What is FreeG? It's a free software where basically you can just adjust the volume of any given channel on your DAW. Okay, so what am I doing this for? What I typically do to make sure I have enough headroom whenever I'm mixing is I will take this software. It has just a little knob that you can just drag down. I'll drag it down by 15 decibels. So that takes the volume of the channel and takes it down 15 decibels. Well, Dax, that sounds like it's going to make the channel really quiet. Why would I do that? Here's why. Because once you start stacking a whole bunch of channels on top of each other, that's going to start to get louder, right? We want to have some room to be in a position where we've got all these channels that have plugins and we're turning up saturation and we're doing different things with the plugins, and we have room to push tracks and get them ahead because we've got, parallel compression and all these fancy things going, right? But you don't have to know all that. That's okay. Sorry if I just word saladed a bunch of audio terms out there for y'all, but the point is you put the volume down so that everything is equally, this is the gain staging side of recording, because a lot of people are working in the box with plugins and presets and things like that. But if you're recording, make sure that your gain is properly set. Like if you're recording guitar or vocals, it's very important that you have the volume right on that. You want to have the volume like somewhat substantial here or on your amp or wherever, but when it comes down to your general other plugins, you want to make sure that the volume is taken down at that plugin level, not at the level of the microphone or the interface. Okay, that's the first thing. Now the next step in that same gain staging space, I like Waves SSL channel. It's really great because it kind of acts as multiple things. I use it to set my dB and my gain staging, down 15 decibels at the start, but it also has some EQ in there. You can sculpt the channels a little bit more as well. So you just have a little bit more flexibility. There's compression and all this kind of good stuff in there. It does cost a little bit of money, but it's totally worth it. So Waves SSL or FreeG. Those are two that you can, two softwares, two plugins that you can get for your DAWs that will help you gain stage properly, so that whenever we introduce some other things that I want to talk about, you can make it sound the best you possibly can. Now the next thing I want to talk about is MIDI instruments. To really get the highest quality sound, you want to use these really great sounding audio libraries like Audio Lab 4 by Native Instruments. Very, very cool software. It's got a lot of high quality presets in there that you can use. There's a free version of it, and then there's a paid version of it. The free version's great, paid version's better. Just kind of how it is, but hey, it's great. It's worth the investment if you want to go that route, and if your music genre falls a lot into those type of sounds and presets and stuff like that. It's not like guitars and big drums and things like that. Audio Lab 4 could be a great tool for you. Now the next thing, GGD, that stands for Get Good Drums. This is a MIDI drum software that you can utilize to where, let's say you just want a real drum sound for whatever song you're doing. This is a great drum kit to do. But let's say you also are like a guitar player and a guitar player and a bassist. And you're like, well, I just need to find a drummer. It's like, yeah. Or you could have Get Good Drums do the drums. And then if you wanted to have a drummer live, you could just have them learn what you program into the Get Good Drums, could be something to do. Obviously program it that drummers could actually physically play, don't make it like, so crazy fast that it's unhuman to play. But, you could use Get Good Drums as a great real sounding drum kit that's totally MIDI. I love using it because it has a lot of versatility. You can change the volume or velocity of everything so that it fits more of your genre. It's very, very cool. The next one along the drum beat side is one by beat makers called BM Hustle. I like this for more hip hop, dance, pop style beats. It's very, very cool. I like using the Lin drum as well. I think it's VROM or VPROM does a free download of that. It models the Lin drum MIDI. It's really great if you look at songs in the 80s, or any kind of like a modern song example is Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. That sort of drum sound is the Lin drum, and so you can get a free copy of it for MIDI for your DAW. I'll put some of the links in the description to help you out too. Next, let's say you're a guitar player, but you don't play bass, or maybe you're a pianist and you want to have bass, or you're a vocalist and you need a bassist and you've got the drums and stuff. Well, Nick Nocturnal has a great MIDI bass software, especially for all you rock, blues, metal, any distorted genre type of artists, maybe even country in some contexts, might get some value out of the Nick Nocturnal bass MIDI software. It's just a way that you can have a total MIDI-driven bass guitar that actually sounds pretty realistic. Kind of like how Get Good Drums sounds realistically like a real drum kit. Nick Nocturnal's bass MIDI sounds very much like a bass. So that's one thing. And then the last thing I would say is if you do need some other parts, there are free loops and stuff available, but I don't like that kind of stuff. I feel like there's always a risk of copyright, and in that case, I like to just work with musicians. So you can have freelance guitarists, freelance vocalists who could throw down things. So let's say you need a guitar part. I guarantee you there's a guitar player in your area that could throw down exactly what you're looking for. I'm telling you, there's so many guitar players everywhere. They're everywhere. They're more. It's like guitar players and vocalists. You can't like throw a nickel in any direction and not hit somebody who's basically a singer or a guitar player. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so those are some different things that you can use inside the DAW. Now you got your gain staged, right? Now you got some great instruments that you can start stacking in there, and do the best you can. Don't start adjusting volume knobs or anything. Just put it all in there, record it, and then what I like to do, this is like the next best thing that I'd recommend, is going and getting a compressor and putting it in the master bus. Now that just means if you can add an effect to your master track, that's what master bus means. So if you can add the effect to your master track of a compressor, you can get it to a point where everything is nice and level, but you don't want to like overly compress. Maybe you do want to overly compress because it's sonically what you're looking for, but obviously you want to have reasonable compression that just helps make everything nice and level, right? And then there's one more software that's paired with that called a limiter, okay? And a limiter is a tricky deal. A lot of built-in limiters don't have that great of a sound. I have found one limiter that I do really like called the God Particle, and it does cost some money, but it's really worth it because the quality of demos that I was creating with my band and like the overall mixes that we were able to create from those went from like a 5 to an 8 just with that one plugin, because you can make edits and adjustments on the God Particle plugin if you want to bring up the bass, the mids, the highs, that kind of good stuff. It's a really great sounding limiter, and it can really get you to compete volume wise, because I know some people are like, my mixers are so quiet, I can't hear anything. This will make it to where that is not a problem ever. Listen to those mixes back though. You may notice like once you really crank everything up and everything's kind of compressed and brought up by the limiter, you may notice certain instruments are louder than they need to be, or certain vocal parts are sticking out too much or not sticking out enough. Then you can go back in there, make some adjustments. I would turn the limiter off, turn the compressor off, make those adjustments, throw them back on, see what happens, that kind of stuff. So those are some basic things that you can do. Let's kind of recap a little bit. So you've got your DAW, right? What are we going to do? We're going to get a free gain staging plugin called FreeG. If you want to invest in a paid one, Wave's SSL channel is a great one to invest in. Now we've got everything nice and gain staged at like -10, -15 dB. So now we can start adding stuff and really mixing it without running out of headroom, and we start clipping, and it starts getting to that red, it starts getting red on the meters and stuff like that. So then once we're at that point, now we can start adding instruments. So I wanted to give you a nice plethora of MIDI instruments that will help get you the sounds, whether that's piano, synth, strings, drums, bass, guitar, different things that you can do. Like I said, freelance guitar players are not necessarily MIDI, but they're good people to hire because it gives them a job and it helps the overall economy of musicians, I think. So you could do that for bass too if you want a little bit more of an authentic bass sound, or the Nick Nocturnal bass presets on the plugin don't sound they don't sound fit for your genre. Then yeah, I would recommend hiring bass players too. The other thing that we need is a limiter. Okay, something that once we start to mix, like we're finishing up our mix and we're trying to have something that sounds really nice and solid, especially if we're just independent, grinding it out at the home, trying to create the best mix that we can with the limited resources that we have. I would throw a compressor in the master channel, make sure everything is nice, and there should be a preset for a master bus compressor. I would use those presets and just start from there and start adjusting the level of the compression from that position, from the preset level. That's what I did to start out. And yeah, from there, you can just crank up that limiter. Don't crank it up too much to where your mix just looks like a black bar all the way across. Make sure you can see some hills and valleys at the tips there so that your mix has some dynamics, so it can be loud and it can be quiet. It can be super aggressive in your face and it could be reserved and back at different moments in the song. So just don't go crazy with the limiter and just crank that thing up to where it's unreasonably loud. And hopefully that will, in 3 or 4 simple steps, get you to have more professional sounding mixes, so that when you start to make content, you start putting stuff out on Spotify and all that kind of good stuff, you can put the best foot forward that you have. Because I want to reiterate something. In the beginning stages, you are going to be tempted to keep your music withheld because, it's not the highest quality, yada, 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 yada. This gives you an opportunity to just get stuff out there, because ultimately, yes, what you put out will not be as good as if you went to some big studio and had a $20,000 studio budget. But if you can't afford that, if that's not in the cards, then you just go with what you've got. Eventually, one day, if you wanted to, you can always take that music down. Unless you may find out that it's actually still getting a whole lot of streams, and you're like, at first I didn't personally like it, but apparently a lot of fans like it, they're willing to stream it, so might as well keep it up. Whatever you want to do with it, you can do with it. But in the beginning stages, get out there, get an identity as an artist, and start putting your music out there with the best foot forward that you possibly can, so that when fans receive it, they can actually be a little bit more open to it, because they're not like, ooh, this mix sounds terrible. They won't consciously think that, but subconsciously, they will feel a bad mix. And this will hopefully help you create a good sounding mix so that you can create some more fans. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button if you've got some value from it. You can also click the link that's in the description if you'd like some one-on-one help setting up your music business and creating super fans and figuring out how to monetize and create a music business. There's a link in the description if that's something that's interesting to you. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you on another Musicians Ignite.